Hello everyone, and welcome back to American Literature class in or course in summer 2020. This is class number 16, and we are still lingering with Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. In fact, Huckleberry Finn is a great text. It represents the American culture in its entirety, in its all periods. And when you read the comments of great literary figures such as T.S. Eliot, Ernest Hemingway, William Faulkner, and how this book influenced them, because it revolves mainly around the Americanness of America, the Americanness of the Americans, okay? Or take, for example, what Harold Bloom says about the text. We will come to this in due course, but let us today go and continue what we have started, the overview of the chapters before we get into the analysis. But here and there we are going to give glimpses of analysis. This photo shows Jim and Huckleberry Finn on the raft on the river. It seems that this is the moment where we are going to clash with this steamboat that is going to split the raft into two pieces. So this is the Mississippi River, which is the symbol of American freedom, American life, vividness, etc., etc., and how people live in a raft and a steamboat comes and hit them and split the raft into two pieces. We will come to this, okay? Just keep it in your mind. Yes, we're going to do class chapter 10, chapter 11, chapter 12, and chapter 13 today, okay? What comes of handling snakeskin? Chapter 11, they are after us. Better let blame well alone. Honest loot from Walter Scott, or the Walter Scott. In chapter 10, with Jim pronouncing it bad luck to even discuss it, adding that unburied corpses are more likely to haunt people than buried ones. He refers to what happened with them in chapter 9 when they came across a place in the cave, okay, in the river, and there was a murdered person, and where Jim acted like a parent to Huck by covering the eyes of the dead man or the murdered man and just having left. Now the second day, Huck was thinking about what they saw, the place and the murdered man, etc., etc., and he reminded Jim of what happened. He was wondering what happened. Now Jim felt so bad. We start the chapter with Jim feeling bad or believing that it is some sort of bad luck that Huck opened the topic after it was closed. And he adds here, this is superstition. He believes in superstition. Oh my goodness, why do you talk about this person? Remember, unburied corpses are more, unburied people or bodies, yeah, are more likely to haunt people than buried ones. Yeah, it's bad luck. To him, it's bad luck. This is naive, this is superstitious, this is, yeah. This is a facet of ignorance or a result of ignorance, okay? The chapter closes with the beginning of a hilarious episode of Huck dressing up as a girl so he can go to town and find out the latest news about him and Jim. So Huck takes the decision to dress like a girl, okay? Because he's on the run. He doesn't want to be caught. So he dresses like a girl and he goes to the town to look for news and for himself and for Jim, because Jim is an escaped slave. He puts on a dress and a bonnet hat like a girl that they took from the floating house the night before. You can see how loot is part and parcel of the novel, of the story. Looting. You steal something and just that's okay. Okay? If you talk about thieves, the story is full of thieves. His father wants his money, the king and the duke are looking for illegal money, and they took from the floating house. This is looting as well. Yeah, you can think of how the society is in turmoil. People can do whatever they please without paying attention, without heeding or taking the heed of what they do. After making his way to the mainland, Huck finds himself outside the house of someone who has just moved into the town. He meets now with the housewife, and after a series of pranks or practical things, he is discovered by this lady. Okay? Now, when he is discovered by this lady, he demonstrates highly qualified personality of telling lies that is going to be accepted or believed by this lady. Okay, he is cunning, he's wicked, and she is sympathetic with him. Okay, and this is demonstrated in chapter 11. He demonstrates resourcefulness in telling a lie, although he ultimately makes some critical mistakes. She discovers him. Okay? Huck enters the woman's house and presents himself as a girl on her way to an uncle on the other end of town. Okay? When the woman starts relating the local news, now he is after the news for him and for Jim. Huck learns that Pap, his father, has disappeared and that Jim is a prime suspect in Huck's supposed murder. Yeah, these are very important news for Huck and Jim, that his father disappeared and that Jim is the main suspect, the prime suspect of Huck's supposed murder. Excuse me. In fact, the woman's husband is planning to hunt for Jim and collect the reward. Yeah, there is this culture of bounty hunters during the slavery time. If a slave escapes, the authorities of the place announces a reward for anybody who catches or hunts this slave and brings him back. And these people were called bounty hunters. If you go and watch, and I would love you watch this movie, Django Unchained. Django Unchained is a very important movie that tells you how the American culture was like in the beginnings of American establishment or the days. Okay? And here you will find the bounty hunter concept recurrent in the movie. Okay? Django Unchained. And here you can also get acquainted with the concept of house slave. It's very interesting. Shortly thereafter, Huck's nervousness causes him to lose his cover. Yeah, the bonnet falls down and he is discovered as a boy. However, he also gets away with it because he is wicked. He is very funny. He is lovable. Okay. When he starts toying with the woman's sewing equipment and reveals that he cannot thread a needle, she recognizes that he is in fact a boy. Yeah, he cannot do the girl's business. Huck's response is to further compound his lie by admitting the woman is right, while fabricating a tragic story about the terrible events that led him to try this disguise. Yeah, apologizing. He's apologetic here. Not only does the woman believe him, she has a great deal of sympathy for his plight, predicament, dilemma, offering him advice on how to maintain his feminine cover. And this is in his interest. When Huck returns to Jim, the two friends set out on their long journey down the Mississippi River. Yeah, they come back and they continue. In chapter 12, it deals with Huck and Jim's first adventure while on the Mississippi. What is this adventure? Now, this is Jim's wigwam. Wigwam is a word taken from the Native Americans, and this is the wigwam that is built around a structure made from a frame of poles covered with materials such as grass, cloth, or animal skins lived in by Native Americans, especially in the northeastern US and Canada in the past. Why I used the idea of wigwam, I wanted to tell you that, remember when I told you that the American culture is not totally, it's for a great extent different from the British culture, although they come from the same source, but over time they diverge. Each one has its own way, and wigwam is a facet of this divergence. This wigwam is the place or the home that Jim builds over the raft. Okay? Huck begins by recounting that Jim has built a wigwam on the raft. This is the wigwam again, to protect their belongings, as if they had belongings, muqtanayat, and describes the sights they see, including the city of St. Louis, and their daily routine of going ashore each night to buy food and to borrow things they cannot afford. How do you borrow from a place from which you are leaving soon? Yeah, borrow here is like a euphemistic term for steal or loot. Okay? Shortly thereafter, they come upon a disabled steamboat named the Walter Scott. Walter Scott is the name of a famous figure in English literature, and he's like a hero. After climbing aboard the steamboat, Huck and Jim hear the voices of three thieves. Yeah, theft again, thieves again, okay? And learn of their murderous intention. Yeah. What do you think what they are going to do now? What are Jim and Huck going to do with these thieves? Are they going to help them? Are they going to protest about this murderous intention? Are they sympathetic with them? Yeah, this is very interesting. You can think of how all these bad deeds permeate, or bad behaviors or vices permeate the whole text. Wherever they go, they find good people and bad people. Okay, but bad people are dominant. This is really is interesting. When Huck decides to get out, Jim informs him that raft has broken loose. Okay? It went away, okay? Huck then decides to find the usual skiff that is used for transporting people in shallow water, and they silently slip away. In chapter 14, once they are free, Huck expresses concern for the thieves they have left stranded. Now, the thieves were stranded, okay? He says how dreadful it was, even for murderers, to be in such a fix. And he tells them he wants to help them. They are in a plight, they are in a predicament. I want to help them. You see, here you can see how innocent Huckleberry Finn is. They are murderers, okay, and he thinks that they deserve help. In order to save the three criminals from almost certain drowning, Huck tells a ferry boat captain an elaborate tale about his family. He purported that these thieves are his family to the steamboat, being stranded on the disabled steamboat, and feels bitter for having assisted the three undesirables. You can see how innocence led him to help these people. Okay? I wished the widow knowed. Now, imagine that he is reflecting on his deed and he wanted the widow Douglas, who adopted him, he wished her to know that he helped these people. I wished why? Because he believed that she would be proud that he helped those people. I wish the widow knowed, you see, he doesn't use grammatical ways of know, knew, he doesn't say knew, okay? Knowed about it. I judged she would be proud of me for helping these rapscallions. Rapscallions, bad people, like, because rapscallions and deadbeats is the kind the widow and good people takes the most interest in. They deserve mercy, according to them. It appears that Huck is interested in saving lost souls. This is the conclusion. These people, the criminals, are lost souls. They do bad deeds simply because they are lost. They don't know the way. They are stray, ضالين, okay? For now, I thank you very much for this. I would like to go for something. I want you to go. We will come back to this later on, to this book, which is Reflections on Exile by Edward Said, and especially when we are going to compare between Huckleberry Finn and Moby Dick. Now, Harold Bloom, as we are going to see in the next class, believes that Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, and The Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman are the three major defining works of Americanness, of American culture. I want you, in order to see what we are going to say, or in order to absorb, in order to appreciate how these works represent like the holy cows of American literature. Okay? Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, Moby Dick, Herman Melville's Moby Dick, and Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, collection of poems. Herman Melville is an epic novel. It's nearly about everything: philosophy, anatomy, empire, okay, the relationship between man and nature. It's about whaling in the first place, but it discusses nearly everything. Unlike Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, which is a humorous book. Now, Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn is a book of humor. You can laugh. Okay, it's totally about telling truth. It's about the true character of American personality. But again, Moby Dick is a tragedy, a tragic text. You cannot laugh while you read Moby Dick. Leaves of Grass is, as Bloom says, beyond characterization. It's nearly everything. It's nearly everything. So I want you to go and look in Edward Said's book, look for his chapter talking about Moby Dick. Okay? Where is it here? Yeah, I think I put this. Yes. Introduction to Moby Dick. He starts this: the daring aesthetic beauty and terrifying intensity of Moby Dick have earned it a place of great honor as novel and as remarkable cultural document. He, in other instance or another paragraph, he says that it is the greatest and most eccentric work of literary art produced in the United States. Okay? Look at how Edward Said describes this book. The greatest and most eccentric work of literary art produced in the United States. Later on, he will talk about the imperial aspect. This is what I want you to take care of when you study Moby Dick. Okay? Empires are the way of the modern world. An earlier reference to Alexander's of Macedon and of Russia complements Ishmael's sense in this passage that the world is being divided up by enterprising conquerors. Okay, conquerors, the people who want to control the world. Okay? Now, this paragraph is important. He talks about the relative newcomer to the competition for imperial domination. America must make its own but strikingly different claim. Yeah. Like other empires before it, America has to put forward its claim. Whereas other empires control land, America seeks sovereignty over water. And this is all discussed in Moby Dick. Okay? Whereas other empires control land, America seeks sovereignty over water. And whereas other seamen use the oceans as a way from one landfall to another, or as a site on which to do what they do on land, plunder, for instance, only the Americans and their counterparts live on and derive a living from the sea. You see how sea is important and pivotal in the American culture. Now, looking at the idea of the ocean in Moby Dick and the idea of the river in Huckleberry Finn and the grass, leaves of grass. Remember, Walt Whitman comes from Long Island in New York. He lives on an island that is surrounded by water. So water is very important for the Americans. This is why Bloom believes that these novels or these works, Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, and Herman Melville's Moby Dick, are the defining works of American literature. We'll come to Bloom now now in the next class, I mean, because we are recording. All this is the novice imperialist discourse, carving out a more or less complete self-sufficient form of life on the sea, so much so that land itself will in time appear to be an alien, unusual element, because the events of Moby Dick takes place on sea, on oceans. Okay, Ishmael, who is a main character in Moby Dick, asserts an imperial project whose features are that it can provide both an alternative livelihood for the non-Tucketer American and the potential for an authentically different, even avant-garde sort of achievement. Of course, these hyperbolic statements about the American quest for world sovereignty are playful and should be read mainly in an aesthetic context. Yet, no American or non-American who has read this superb novel has ever doubted that in such passages and in perhaps the hero, the protagonist, tremendous quest, Melville has very accurately caught something of the imperial motif. So the imperial motif is existent in Melville's work that runs consistently through United States history and culture. I stop here and see you in next class. Thank you very much.